Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. Will be starting shortly. We're going to give everybody a couple minutes to come on in, and then we will go ahead and start with today's intuitive user group.
Thanks, Jess.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. We are doing our intuitive user group for our fall sessions this year. My name is Jessica Canellis, and I help do the marketing and the accounts here. And today on our call, we also have Jim Castellano, our president and owner. We have Gary Cerny for our intuitive, which you guys all know very well. We also have Jim McCormick for Acumatica HR Payroll Time and Attendance. And then we also have Brendan James for M Files. And if you guys have any questions throughout the event, please throw them down in the question box. Or if you would like to come off of your mic and ask personally, if you would just click the raise hand button and I can unmute you for you to ask our consultant. If you guys have questions afterwards, you can email Jim, you can email Gary or myself. And I'm going to go ahead and give it over to Jim Castellano so we can do a quick introduction and start our day off.
Thank you, Jessica. Can everyone see my screen? Jessica, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, good morning, good afternoon to some of you. I'm Jim Castellano, the president and owner of PeopleSense. I wanted to thank you today for coming on to our intuitive ERP user group meeting. Today is October 22nd, 2025. We try to do this 2 times a year for our customers and prospects on the intuitive side. And then tomorrow, you're more than welcome to come out too. We also have our made to manage side. That will be tomorrow. We have a lot of different customers who are on today through the intuitive side. So I have to thank our team that we have. We have Gary, Jess, and a whole bunch of people here that will actually have used team that emails you, that sends you out invites, things like that. If there are some things that you do want to see, please always let us know, because we try to show you things that maybe you don't know about in our software. So at least want to let everybody know about that. So let me come over here to my focus. There we go. So at least give you a little bit of background and history on PeopleSense for some of you. I founded the company in 2003. And so from there, we were a made to manage and intuitive partner for many, many years. So from there, when Aptean took over, they got rid of all their partnerships. So I created a ERP division for made to manage and intuitive over 13 years ago. So I can't thank Gary and Brian Tognoni on the ERP side, on the made to manage side, enough for helping us get started with our different products. Our core products, as you can see, is human resource, payroll, ERP, being made to manage and intuitive. And we also have Acumatica ERP. We'll talk about that at the end today to go over other options with people. We also have time and attendance. We actually can do time clocks from any system that you have. We can keep track of all that and bring that time in. And we also have, which is really big, that a lot of customers are asking more and more about, is our document management storage software. Just to let everybody know, we have our M Files document management that integrates with Intuitive. So it's very, very nice software. Our customers, we have customers in over 42 states, Canada, and we have some of our customers that actually have people in UK and throughout the UK, and I should actually put Europe there because we have some in Spain and so on. We have over 20 consultants nationwide and worldwide. We have a couple who have moved out of the country who work with us still in Europe. We also have over 250 years of combined experience with our consultants, so I can't thank them enough. And we have a whole bunch of them on here today. To give you a little bit of perspective, here's our team for our intuitive side. So you have, of course, myself and Gary Cerny, but you have people who have helped out with all this. This is Jessica Canellis, so you guys get to see what she looks like. We also have Jim McCormick on the top left up there. He works on our Acumatica side. And then we have a lot of you have worked with Tim Lindsay, Jeff Ness. We have Larry Nubian, all of them, Doug Roth, Wayne McDonald. And on my main to manage side, I have Jim Cooey. Jim will be coming in and out today just to see, just to let everybody know that. But we also have a team that helps us out with additional products. So that we have, of course, Jim McCormick again, Brennan James on our M Files. Joseph England helps with account support. We have Deep, who helps out with our M Files and ERP processes. Sam, who does account associate. All of you have probably heard from Sam. Sam's been emailing out, Jess, have been emailing out to a lot of the customers. So I can't thank them enough for all the hard work that they do put in. Now I'm going to go through some of the different things. I'm going to bring Gary in on some of these. So Gary, if you don't mind taking the mic a little bit, I think you're here. And so I'll let you talk about some of them, and whatever ones you want me to talk about, no problem. Gary?
You bet. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me, number one?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So just a couple of things. This is interesting because, like I said, Jim said, I mean, I've known Jim for a long time. And again, starting the ERP division for Made to Manage and Intuitive was really a beautiful thing because as you saw the names that were Intuitive personnel from a consulting point of view, we have a lot of power. And what we have done beautifully over I'll just say I'm going to pick 10 years now, a couple of these products, and they're all integrated. And I mean, so things like Avalara for all the sales tax, the tax reporting, the tax filings, great product. We got a number of customers on that. And MindSight in that particular case, that's our hosting. I know that our friends at Appian probably have talked to you about hosting and things like that. So we have the same thing. Great product, MindSight, if you want to get rid of on-site activities and have us host Intuitive for you and do the same things you're doing, but we take care of the hosting for you. PartTrap, cool product. Think about web portals, not only for configurations, if you're that type of manufacturing, but just, basic web stores. But the neat thing about PartTrap also, we integrate into credit card processing. So like there's a product called eBiz. So PartTrap, credit card processing, and even with PartTrap also for the web portals, we have done the integration into Avalara. So I mean, there's ties in the partner products into the other partner products that we have done, because obviously we've got customers that are doing credit card. Well, they certainly want to have got sales tax and want credit card processing. One of my big favorites is on the bottom here, the procurement and AP automation. When I was doing all the pre-sales consulting back in the day, I remember so many times talking to procurement people. I need some tool that brings me together with my vendors so my vendors can automatically update things, get rid of emails, get rid of telephone calls, and think about this procurement and AP automation. It's the go-between between Intuitive ERP and your vendors. And it's all electronic, it's all updated on a big dashboard, and it gets rid of all of the activities of the telephone calls and the emails and the hollering and all this, and date changes and things like that. So neat product that is our procurement and AP automation. Knowledgesync, Larry Newby is here. He will talk about this. He is our connoisseur on that. So I know that Appian has a product too, but think about Knowledgesync, alerting, workflows. Larry's going to talk about some neat things that he has done with customers other than sending out automatic emails, and he's doing database updates and all kinds of things. So I'll leave it at that. Two reporting tools that really I love, obviously advanced reporting. Obviously that's been with the Intuitive and Made to Manage products forever, but we added Power BI also. So we support both products, and we have a gentleman that takes care of all the Power BI consulting, and he's an Intuitive guy too. So he's got that background, and he's put together all schemas and things like that for Power BI to right out of the box to start learning it. So keep that in mind. Don't forget about barcoding. Don't forget about EDI. Jim's going to talk a little bit about M Files, the document management system. And then obviously PrintBoss. obviously for, automatic printing of all labeling and emailing everything from a shipping point of view. So we're using a product, PrintBoss, great product. And then obviously, as Jim has said, mainstay of people since way back when in '03 was HR and payroll. So I'm not here to, I just want you to be aware of this partner product integration has grown significantly over the years because of demands from our customers like yourselves, and then obviously integrating these specialty products obviously into our products. Thank you.
Oh, Gary, thank you so much. So for anybody that wants more information on this, one, get a hold of Gary or Jess. They can send you feature sheets on any of them. And a demo can always be set up for you. Demos are always free. So whatever you'd like to have more information on, just let us know. Okay? Gary, thank you so much. You did a great job. I'm going to push over to the next screen. Let me get my focus back. And here we go. So today we are on schedule still. I see from our 11 to 11:15, we're doing our intros just right now. And then we have tips and tricks on report data extraction with Jeff. Is that correct? Today?
Yes.
Okay. And then I just want to make sure I have everything here. I find it. Overview with Knowledgesync. Okay. With Larry. And then we have tips and tricks and MRP planning. And then we have tips and tricks, MRP scheduling. And then after that, at 1 p.m. Central Time, these are all Central Time, sorry about that, everyone. It says at the top. These, we're going to do questions. We can open it up. So we're going to open it up to the floor so you can be unmuted if you like. So please ask questions. We want to hear from you. And so also you can also put them in the chat, as Jess has said earlier. So people who've come on afterwards, you can always put it in the chat, any questions you have. Jess will see those along the way today. Also, if you need to get a hold of Gary, that is Gary's cell phone number. He likes you guys to call him at like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. He said to me personally, he goes, he likes that. So that's Gary's cell number. Also, you have his email. We also have Jessica Canella, same thing, but her cell's not on here, so we'll just go to the office. Email, that's your email. So if you guys want to, that's our support email. If you guys want to ever get a hold of our support, you can always call us at the office, and then we would assign like Jeff and S right away, Larry or Tim or any of the team, Doug, anyone as you saw, they'll normally get on that right away. I always joke and tease, we're the anti-app team. We actually get back to you within, I would say within the hour, hopefully, on that. So just to let everybody know. Also, I wanted to thank App Team for this because we wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for them helping us out. All of our customers and staff for making this happen. Without all of you, we would not be who we are today and for doing this. So I thank you so much. And then real quick, I just have a couple of cleanup items. One of them is we will open the floor up. Email support we talked about. We will talk about Acumatica later today at 1 o'clock and any of those questions, because we want to give people other options. So people who are thinking about moving to another software, please talk to us first. I've actually done the research on 6 different ERP softwares. So I just want to make sure that we might be able to answer some of those questions that you're looking for if you're thinking about moving to another software. So besides that, I'll send it back over to Jess and the team. So I want to thank everybody for being here. Thanks, Jess.
Yeah, thank you. And if Jeff, if you are ready, I'll go ahead and push it over to you and we can get your section started.
Sounds good.
All right.
I'll show my screen. Gotta get the right screen here. There we go. That must be it. All right, is that my PowerPoint?
Yes.
We can see it. Schedule reports.
Okay. Yeah.
You are good. Okay. Just making sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, to make sure I'm not showing my other things. All right, well, good morning, everybody. I'm glad that you were able to come, and I'm glad to be able to come and tell you about some things we've done. One of the things that we do here with PeopleSense and with our group is we have a good mix of work with customers and for customers for 25, 30 years. And through that time, we've come to pretty well be able to try and help customers solve their problems. And so I'll just talk through one of the things we've done over the past year-ish that we've worked on for a number of folks and enhanced for a number of folks is schedule reports. So why do we do this? Because in Intuitive, you already have schedule reports, and you say, well, why can't I just use the Intuitive product and just leverage what they've already put on my system? And the reasons are a number. One, for the limitations of the Intuitive process are that it's just PDFs. And so it just allows you to output and send PDFs, where you may want any number of different types of files, formats, and oftentimes people want the actual data that goes along with it. Another problem or limitation is its scheduling capability. The Intuitive product allows for calendar days and calendar times, but doesn't allow for some times and schedules that really suit what the customers that we talk to really need, which is at times more of a fiscal calendar rather than a scheduled calendar. The last reason is because, frankly, over the years, I've had a hard time with a number of folks actually getting the Intuitive export service to work reliably. It does work when it works. It works very well. When it doesn't work, it's pretty maddening. And so in trying to resolve that with Aptean over the years, we just have never had huge success in getting it in a place where I would call reliable. So those things, along with a couple other areas we'll go through, pushed us to create a scheduler for some folks and to really provide a more robust, I think, solution for what they're trying to do. So the whole premise was we need to export reports and data. So we created a screen, and this is really kind of the scheduling output. If you do this, what we would generally talk to you about is what do you want to do? Do you want to just export or send or push an Intuitive report? Or do you want to do a custom SQL extract or a custom process? So those are the three basic areas that we provide. Is a current system report would be, invoices, purchase orders, stock value, whatever report you can run in the system and generate the report data source or data definition for, we can provide an export or service for that, whether that be just the report or it be the report and data, we can send both of those to you. Custom SQL extract means that oftentimes we talk to folks who need to upload data on a scheduled basis to a secondary system, and they do that through an FTP site. They say, we need to send our purchase order information, our AP information, our backlog information up to our headquarters so that they can incorporate into a data warehouse. Well, we can generate or provide the SQL, and we can automatically schedule and extract and send that data to an FTP site. And then there's custom processes, which are things like, I think the first one here, auto post GLTs. So many folks want to have their posting happen on schedule rather than have to go and push the button and wait for the things to happen. So the scheduler, that's why I called it Schedule Reports Plus, by the way. It initially started with reports, but now it's really incorporates much more than reports, but pretty much anything you'd want to do in the system. So we can build custom processes, whether it's posting GLs or importing data, or basically whatever you can do in Intuitive that you might want to automate, we can provide that through the scheduler and through through the utility. So once you determine what you'd like, then you basically have to tell the system when you would like to do it. And so this is really where one of the major changes was the challenge that many face, and that we talk to us, they say, hey, is there a solution for every month, at the end of the month, I have 10 reports I have to do. And to do that, I have to either wait for production to stop for that last day of my fiscal period, or I have to come in the next day and do it before I start my next fiscal period. So there's a gap, because at times the Intuitive reports are a little, I don't want to say unreliable, but they can be a little confusing over periods. So the best solution is always to take a snapshot at the time of, a cutover before you get started with the next. So to solve that, people, like I said, they would come in and they would spend a half a day or a couple hours each fiscal period and run these reports. And generate these for historical and financial use, down the road. So we built a scheduler that was aware of the fiscal calendar. And so rather than say, at the end of the month, I want to run these 10 reports, because, a lot of people run their fiscal calendars off of calendar months, but a lot run it off of a different scheme, which puts it at the first, Saturday or Friday at the end of each month, depending on, where the days fall in the week. So we built the ability to say at the end of a fiscal period, you can schedule to do these reports. And one of the examples we have, the customer runs 10 to 15 reports every month, and it dumps them into a directory, and it also extracts the data. So it takes the report for the PDF for use with sending off to whomever they need to send, but it also gives them the data, so they have a data snapshot of the same reports for the same period for the same time, and does all this on a schedule that's reproducible, that they enter the schedule here one time. So they'll go through this utility and they'll set up the where it goes to, what it's going to be filed, is going to be named, the output, the type of output, the excuse me, you can activate and inactivate, and you can go through any number of setups, but one of them in here is the fiscal calendar. I think it's actually on my next slide. Kind of shows, yeah. So you can say use fiscal calendar, right? And you can say what day of the day, what type of occurrence it uses. You can see it's got the report data source if that's what you're using. But the next thing about the report data source I'll just point out is that it's the parameters that matter for reporting. It's the ability to say, I don't just want to run an open AR aging. I want to run it as of a date, or I don't want to just run the stock value, but I really would want to split my stock value, and I want to see a purchase list, or maybe a manufactured list, or maybe a warehouse, or some subset of the standard report. Well, when we bring in the report data source, we also bring in the parameters, and you'll notice this is what I want to kind of point out, is the aging date says FYPED. Well, that's the code that we're using to integrate with the fiscal calendar. So fiscal year, I think it stands for fiscal year period end date. And so there's a few more symbols that you can use here for parameters that when the system runs, it will convert those into the correct date that will fall into your calendar rather than the standard calendar. So along with that, because I don't want to go too deep into one part of this without telling you about the other parts. I can figure what's on here. The types of output: we have reports, we have grids, and we have grid data, and we have both. And that's for just the intuitive reports that would go off the scheduler. We also have, as I mentioned, the extracts, which are straight SQL extracts that you can build your own SQL. And if it's a view or it's a query, you can use the same parameter functionality to seed and set and run your process. And of course, if it's a process, we can build an audit for you if you need that. So it takes what Intuitive provides and allows you to customize to provide the auditing and trail that you need. So what do you get with that? So, well, some examples. So these are things we've done. We've done reports, we've done data extracts, and like I say, these are for someone who wants to, on a schedule, upload to a secondary system to allow them to incorporate into a data warehouse that they have at a corporate level. And this runs, I think, daily for those guys. And actually, this one we built will not only extract, it has some requirements as far as zipping the file in a particular format with particular passwords, encryption, logging on and uploading to an SFTP site, and actually validating that the upload was complete. schedule processes. We do a number of things in and around, like the auto post GLTs. We can email from it, and email is not to, it's a different level than, say, your Knowledgesync, which Larry will talk more about in a bit. But email would be, if you, rather than send it to a directory, if you wanted the report to go to a person, we could easily build that. And then the like I said, the FTP. So what do you get when you buy this? You get any number of options for what you might want to run. So essentially, you get a scheduler that will build out of the box any report on a schedule, on your schedule, that you want to generate or produce or send or do whatever you want with. It will also give you the ability out of the box to come out and say, I want the data. So rather than just print the PDF, I want the data. Stock value is always my best example, because many folks want the stock value at the end of the month, but they also want the data because that allows them to slice and dice, do whatever they want with, from the financial side of things through their closings. It also, so when you get it, you get all the intuitive reports, you get the ability to do the ad hoc. You don't necessarily get the custom process, because custom processes are just that, they're custom. So you would say, hey, we're interested in automating this, and we would work with you to take the scheduling engine and build that custom process into it. So when we do install it, the expectation should be that we'll install a service, and similar to the intuitive reporting service, we'll install a service and it will run somewhere and watch for these requests and watch for the schedule. Oh, and one more thing you can do is run now. So many folks say, well, I just want to test this out and run it and see how it works. You also have the ability to check a button, check a box, and it'll generate whatever you're asking for right away, so you can see pretty quickly whether things work or not. So that's the scheduling output plus, and available to you guys. I have a minute, 2 minutes, so that's just why I'm talking a little bit fast. So I want to talk about very quickly a couple of things we did that we've talked about before, but just to remind, because I still get a lot of requests for data auditing, we do have a full data auditing option that we can work with you to install and incorporate, and it's every every month it gets better, because we have people using it and asking for different things and asking for different options, and so the product gets a little bit more robust and a little bit more data and user friendly. But what it provides at a high level is full menu access, which would tell you who's running what. And this is often good for custom and customized reports, so that you can see whether a report change you've made has no effect or an effect, and see who's running it. We have auditing at the CRUD function. So new records, you get an audit trail. Change or edit information, you get an audit trail, and delete information, you get an audit trail. Delete information sounds a little unusual, but it does actually track key information for delete, such as if you delete an item, and that's one of the things you're choosing to audit, it will keep track of the item that you deleted, so it captures it before it deletes. And with new records and for change, you get the same sorts of things as it happens. Your ability to field by field specify what you want to audit, and pick the domain, pick the level to audit, and then start tracking that information. And then we'll go right here, and this is what your output now looks like. So rather than have each one separately, we show you things in context. So this would be similar to the excuse me, the customer change. I think I'm going to list on customer. No, this is item. So you would pick the item. You can filter down to the item, and you can see the changes over time. So each one of these represents a transaction within the item, and then within the transaction, you can see the context of where the change was made, to which tab of data, or to which data table underneath the main table. And then you get this is your main menu audit that shows you who ran.
Hey, Jeff, you became a little quieter. I'm just letting you know.
Okay. So the last one I want to talk about is currently allocated sales, and this is new actually, but this is a report that we can provide to you, because the problem is what the challenge was the customer says, hey, we need to understand how much material we have allocated to a particular warehouse, and we don't just want to know how much we have allocated, but we want to know if we're short, or we have enough to cover, or where we stand with respect to filling that allocation. So we built a data process that would go through every allocation, and this and primarily by warehouse, but it could be by all, but it go through every allocation, and then it'll make a few decisions. First, it'll determine if there's on hand to cover, and it'll code that as on hand to cover, and it sequences them by first need filled. So if you have a need for an item 3 times, it'll fill the first one, say it's on hand, reduce the on hand, and apply the remainder to the next one. And if there's enough on hand, it'll again say enough on hand. But if not, it'll go to the purchase orders, and let's use purchasing as an example, and say, do you have any on order? And it'll look for the most the nearest purchase order and apply it to the demand, and start filling demand with the purchase orders and the planned receipts. And at the end of that, if you just don't have enough, it says, there's this one short. You need to go deal with this because you don't have enough on hand, and you don't have any on order or enough on order to cover it. You need to deal with this. And so this process runs on a schedule, and it runs by warehouse. So you get a list of if you can run this by warehouse. So if you're doing warehouse planning, you can see this spot for each warehouse site that you have. And it also runs for purchase and manufactured. So it does the same decision making based on purchase items and purchase orders, and then manufactured items and work orders that are coming in to fill the demand for work orders. And again, this provides the data that you can then use to help you make decisions with respect to purchasing and manufacturing, and basically ticklers. It's a sort of a future plant activity availability report and ticklers. So those are some things we've had cooking, and I think that there are some pretty good tools. And of course, we have many other things that we could build and provide for you. The key for you to know with Intuitive and for what we can do are that system integration processor is another one I'll just point out. So if you have data needs in or data needs out, we can provide the mechanism to get it where you need to go. And that's a big conversation, but just enough to say you don't need to buy a custom transaction metered API. You just need to tell us and work with us. And this is all yours because this is your solution. Just tell us what you need, and we'll help you build that integration processor for whatever part of the system you need to be integrated with, whether it be CRM, website scanning. If it's custom, you just basically need something custom to be built for something you need to do. We can build that, and I can say that with confidence. So I'm happy to discuss these or any of these with you at any point in time, or if you're interested, then reach out to Gary or Jessica, and they can point you to me or to the right person, and we'll get you going. Jim and Gary both had mentioned the resources we have, and we have the resources with Tim and Larry and myself to kind of define and help, but we also have the primary resources and development in Doug, in that he has been directly working with encoding the application for 20 plus years. So he knows this as well as anybody that will come along and make customizations for you. So with that, I don't know if there's question time or not, but I know I've gone a few minutes over. Larry, I apologize, but I wanted to make a couple of the plugs.
You're good, Jeff. There's a lot of good stuff there.
You're all good. Thank you, Jeff. That was a lot, and that was very interesting. I don't have any questions right now, but if you guys do, you can throw them in the question box or later towards the end. All of our consultants will be here if you'd like to come off your mic and ask them directly. They love the interaction. So we will go ahead and switch on over to Larry for our next session. So thank you again, Jeff.
You bet.
Okay.
All right, Larry, if you are ready, we will switch it over.
Look. Okay. Let's see. I want to make sure.
I see your PowerPoint.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah, today I'm going to talk about something I do a lot of work with these days, which is Knowledgesync. Um, and so I want to start with basically telling you what Knowledgesync is, what it does, and help you decide if it could be useful to your company. Um, so I need to move this out of the way. Here. Okay, so your ERP system provides a lot of information, and it provides tools to enter and track things like customer orders, invoices, payments, work orders, purchase orders, inventory receipts, inventory levels, to name just a few. And your ERP system also provides tools like MRP and CRP to help generate things uh, like purchase orders, work orders, pick lists, shipping lists, invoices, to create documents that your company requires to function. And yet you still must rely upon a number of knowledgeable people to run reports and analyze the data to look for signs of common problems. And then they have to take timely action to address those issues. So why not automate some of these processes? You already know the common things that you need to look for. You also know who you need to send this information to. And in many cases, you also know what needs to be done, and you can automate routine tasks so that your users can focus on more important tasks. So what is Knowledgesync? Knowledgesync is an application that can be used to monitor your database, your intuitive database, for specified conditions, and then, when found, respond to them. Knowledgesync lets you automate the if this activity or condition happens, then do that. So there are a number of ways that companies are using Knowledgesync. This list is just intended to give you some idea of the many ways that it can be utilized. One of the most common uses is to automate routine tasks. Are you already sending out sales order acknowledgements? If you are, is this task consuming someone's time? If you aren't, could this reduce ordering mistakes? When an order is shipped, are you currently sending your customer a notice with the tracking number? Would they like that? Are you currently sending out invoices through the mail? Why not send them via email and save the time associated with stuffing envelopes and the cost of postage? When you enter a new purchase order, Knowledgesync can automatically email that PO to the vendor. If it's an outplant PO, there may be some supporting drawings that you always want to be sent to the vendor as well, and Knowledgesync could do that as well. You could probably have someone that is calling your vendors to get updated delivery date commitments when you discover that the purchase order is past due. But how quickly is that being accomplished? These are just a few of the things that Knowledgesync might do for your company. Here are some additional examples. Some of these are more oriented towards alerts to let the right people know when a specific type of situation exists so they can quickly address it. Some are geared towards improving your cash flow. So here's an example of a message from a Knowledgesync process. This example is for a sales order acknowledgement that's being sent to the customer, thanking them for their order and asking them to review the attached report to make sure that everything's correct. And next to it, you see I've expanded the attachment so that you can see it looks exactly like the standard sales order acknowledgement report that comes out of Intuitive, because it is actually generated by the Intuitive system, and it's just attached to this message, this email message. Here's another example of a Knowledgesync message. This message deals with a customer that has past due balances. The company wanted the message to be reviewed by the accounts receivable department before being sent to the customer. And so for this reason, what it does is it provides the accounts receivable personnel with the available contact information, as well as a message that could be quickly forwarded to the customer. So you see that I've got two parts of this, a line in the center. Everything below that could be replaced with the customer information just emailed to the customer. And above that, you've got things like the various email addresses, the phone numbers, et cetera, that they could, if they choose to give them a call instead of sending out the email message, they've got everything they need right there to follow up on. So basically, if you know what you're looking for, who needs to know about it, and what action needs to be taken, you can automate that process of detection and response. That's what Knowledgesync does for you. There are two main uses for Knowledgesync. The first one is task automation, and the second is exception management automation. With task automation, you're already doing a lot of things like invoicing, collections, purchase order approvals that are in many cases done manually. Somebody's picking up the phone or emailing out a copy of or sending out a copy of a document from Intuitive, and Knowledgesync can automate those processes, making sure that they happen on a timely basis and freeing up your staff time to focus on better things to do. The second, exception management, you're already doing some of that. Somebody's going through reports on a daily basis and highlighting things that they're concerned about, and then having meetings to discuss those issues and determine what to do about them. A lot of that stuff, if you want to spend a little bit of effort, you can have that automated so that they get reports that only show the things, the circumstances that they're looking for. And you can automatically send that out to the people that need to deal with it. So the benefits of Knowledgesync by automating if-then business processes, Knowledgesync allows you to save time, makes you more responsive, and increases your knowledge. And I would add that you really can use it to enhance your communications with your customers so that they get more information. It's probably things that you're not sending out because it's too much work. Knowledgesync can just make that happen, like shipment notices and things of that nature. So this is kind of somewhat of a view of what Knowledgesync has as its components. There's a monitor system that that watches your database, and it can also look at cloud apps and websites and incoming mail if you want to. It has interfaces to email, text, or FTP sites that it can communicate with. It has the ability to run forms and documents. You can create them. You can use SQL Server reporting services for reports if you want to build custom ones. You can also use Crystal Reports. It'll interface with both of those. It can generate charts if you wish to do trends and that sort of thing. And it can also do just about anything I want to do with SQL. So it can update your database if need be to update status and sync up data and things of that nature. Knowledgesync software does not require dedicated server, typically installed on your existing SQL Server system. It's built with .NET. and use the SQL Server databases as itself, so it's all current technology. And it has a browser-based front end, so it can be accessed from anywhere that has access to the IP address associated with and the associated port. The Knowledgesync system provides 3 groups of controls. There's the event designer up here, used to build events and queries, etc. The monitor here, which is used to see what's happening or is scheduled. And the admin session, which is used to make system-wide settings. Here you can see I've got into the application events and into a folder that's identified as Intuitive ERP 9.0. Up here is what I'm referring to. These folders help you organize your processes, and you can have as many as you want. With this folder, I've selected the events. Within this folder, I've selected the events and selected, clicked on the edit icon over here for one of the associated events, named sales order acknowledgement to email. Doing so allows us to see it in the event designer, which shows up in the lower part. As you can see, the event designer provides a simple framework for setting up an event or process. It provides a space to set up a schedule for when you want to run this process. In this case, every 5 minutes. And a place to define one or more triggers for the process, and a place to define what the deliverables are. So in this case, there's a query that's been created called sales order acknowledgement trigger. It's used as a trigger to determine what sales order acknowledgements are ready to process. And then down here, we're going to send out an email. We're going to attach a file, and we're also going to submit a SQL query to mark that item as having been processed. Let's see here. While we're looking at this form, I'd like to point out a very useful option provided by Knowledgesync called repeat notification for triggered items. And the show tracked items. Within Knowledgesync, it will, if you uncheck this box, it will automatically keep track of the, in this case, sales order acknowledgements that it's processed, sales orders that it's processed acknowledgements for. And use that tool to prevent sending out additional sales order acknowledgements. So you don't have to then filter it some other way of knowing that it's already been processed. And the show tracked items button allows you to, you can click on that and you can go in and see a list of the sales order acknowledgements that have been processed. So if you wanted to send out one again, you can just go in there and remove one particular sales order from the list, and then it'll go ahead and reprocess that sales order. All right, now let's go to the next slide. So here is the query editor that can be used to build or modify your trigger query. So here we have a list of all of the tables that are in the Intuitive database. And then when you select one of those tables, it will show you, I'm sorry, over here we have the list of tables that have been selected for this particular query. And if I were to select one of these arrows, it would show me all the fields in that table. Down here, you can see where this query has had a number of fields selected out of these tables, and so that's basically how you build a query. You just go in and start selecting the tables you need, and from that, the fields that you need, double click on those. They show up down here, and you can select which of these, like in this case, the sales order ID would be the unique field that we want to track it by. Also, then you have the links tab that allows you to specify how those tables interact with one another. And then there's a filter tab to allow you to select out, what it is that you're, how you will specify the specific subset of records that you want to see. In this case, the print act flag being enabled. So then it also has a preview tab that you can click on to see what records it's currently providing as an output. Moving on to the deliverables section of the event, I've selected the email deliverable so that you can see the built-in HTML editor. So here you have the HTML editor that shows up when you're working on building a new email message. It also shows you the fields that are coming out of that trigger query. So you can just double click on these to put them in the correct spot and build a message. In this case, hi, get the first name and last name, comma, thank you for your recent order, and put the sales order number right there. Please review the attached copy of this order and verify that it's correct. If you have any questions regarding sales order, please get back in touch with us and sign by whoever you like. And then your logo on that. So then the subscribers section down here at the bottom allows you to specify where to get the email. So if it's an internal one, then it would typically be, you'd set that up in the admin section for, you set that up there in the event area under subscribers. If it was going to your HR person or your advanced accounts receivable person, you'd have them set up there. But if in this case, we wanted to send it directly to the customer, so we're going to get that email address from the database. And so as part of that trigger query, it looks at the email addresses that are available. And in this case, we're selecting if this email is there, then I want to use that. But if that one's not there, then I want to use another one. And so we've referred to the end result of that selection process as best email, and that's what's going to go in the send to field. You can also specify fields for CCs and BCCs and all that sort of thing as well. Excuse me. So here's an example, a sample of the email output from that report process. So Knowledgesync also provides the monitor tool that provides a number of logs that can be used to see what's pending, processed, or errors that may have occurred in the processing by Knowledgesync. For instance, here I've selected the application events monitor, which gives a top level look at what's happening in Knowledgesync. There's tabs for pending, which shows events that are pending up here. It would be selected. That shows events that are either about to be submitted or that have been submitted and there was an error state. The check tab is a checked event is one that's successfully executed. It may or may not have been triggered. So it's been checked, but there were no records this time so to be processed. So that would not be triggered, but it would be checked. And so you can look and see that. The trigger tab, which I've selected here, is an event that's been successfully executed and whose conditions were met. So if you, in this case, you run and you find that there's a sales acknowledgement that needs to be processed. This one was processed and it was sent out successfully, and so it shows up there. And then finally, there's an errors tab that you can click on to show up any errors that may have occurred and get information about what may have caused that. And when things do have an error, they automatically get put on the pending tab so that they can be resent. So in this example, I selected the trigger tab, and you can see one time that the top 2 records were processed as a result of the same execution. You can see here both of these went out at 3:10 on 4/5. Sorry for the old data, but that's what I have working with. And it also shows you the subject line of each of those, so you can see which sales order it was being sent out against. And if you want to see more detail on any one of those, you can click this plus over here and it'll expand out to show you more detail. So here's, I've expanded that additional detail. This particular case doesn't show you a great deal of information, but it does show you some additional information. The email, SMS, file, and webcast delivery monitors. You see there's monitors here for each different area. This is in this example, I've selected the email delivery tab. That's this one right here. Oops, sorry, that took me away from my tab. And I've selected the error tab so that I can see the errors that were associated with the email deliveries. And you see the information here about server being rejected because of a username and password not getting accepted. Or in this case, this one didn't go out because one of the files it was supposed to attach couldn't find that file, which is not common, but that was one of the errors that showed up here in this example. So that concludes my overview of the Knowledgesync system. I hope that it's given you some idea of what Knowledgesync is and how it works. And if you think that is something that could be of benefit to your company, you can contact Gary Sierney, and he'll be happy to schedule a demo for you guys so that you can delve into it in greater depth. If you have any general questions about Knowledgesync, you can also submit those for today. And with that, I am done.
Thanks, Larry. I do actually have a couple questions for you, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So someone asked, what other applications have you seen your customers use this with in addition to Intuitive?
Well, Knowledgesync can work with basically any database is pretty much what it does. It can monitor any database. Mostly what I've done for customers has been with multiple Intuitive databases, not too much outside of the Intuitive database that I can think of. We have done some processing of files associated with doing EDI processing, but even that was really associated with the intuitive database.
Okay. And then another one is, have customers seen issues with the email notifications getting frequently placed in spam or the other Outlook tab and missed by external recipients?
Well, in today's world, everybody has challenges getting their emails to go through. I think file attachments, what I would say, spam tends to get picked up off of links. So if your email is message is simple, and then you just attach a file attachment with the document behind it, it's less likely to get caught in spam filters. But you know, it is an issue that people deal with.
Okay. To further expand on the first question, they said, for example, would it work with other SaaS tools like JIRA, and any reasons to think it wouldn't?
I am not familiar with JIRA, I'm afraid. But if there is a database associated with it and you want to be able to pull information out of it, I would fully expect that it could work with it.
And so I believe that is it for
So
Knowledgesync, and I will have you guys reach out to
JIRA is Jira, and it should have no problem with that because it's just a database tool.
Okay.
We just use databases back end, so that Jira should be fine. You know, you're right when you said it's a database event viewer. So if it's a database and it's got an event, it can be managed.
Right.
So.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Larry. And we will go ahead and move on to our last two sessions of the day for MRP planning and scheduling with Tim Lindsay, who I'm sure you all are very acquainted with. So, Tim, if you are ready, I will go ahead and kick it over to you. Are you there, Tim?
Yep, just was trying to solve a couple of technical issues, but I got them done.
That's all right.
You should be able to see my slides.
Yes.
Okay. When I was thinking about this presentation, I was a little bit hesitant to talk about reorder points because everybody in the world knows about order points. However, there have been experiences recently when I've worked with several customers that made it obvious to me that maybe it was a good time to kind of go back and revisit these. Technically, we can think of a reorder point as part of the planning topics that Jessica has mentioned, but there are some scheduling implications as well. And so I'm going to take probably more time than we would think would be applied to this to kind of talk about the nuts and bolts and some of the concepts behind reorder point. So I'm calling this whole presentation Reorder Point 101, and I hope it spawns a little creative thinking amongst you folks who are listening. What I want to try to cover in this session is, first of all, what is order point and why should we use it? What is the concept behind it, and what is the intent of the order point capability in ERP systems and in material management in general? I want to spend some time talking about where order point typically gets used and why it gets used in those various places. This is going to concentrate on, do I do it at the finished goods level? Do I do it at the sub-assembly level? Do I do it at the raw material level? Where do we put in the order point, and what do we hope to gain by doing so? We'll spend some time talking about how the order point quantities are typically calculated, what some of the reasoning is behind those calculations, what some of the key inputs are, and some of the adjustments that sometimes have to be made to those calculations over time. Then we'll take a look at where the order point information is actually defined and set up inside the intuitive ERP system, and what some of the controls are that impact the behavior of order points. And then the final topic is, we talk about order point, but what about safety stock? Over the years, I've noticed that there is some confusion in the customer base about even the difference between order point and safety stock and what their intended uses are, what their intended roles are in your material control environment. So we'll talk a little bit about safety stock and its role in this whole planning in the arena as well. So what is order point and why use it? Basically, order point is a user-defined quantity. There's nothing in Intuitive that automatically calculates order point quantities for you. So any number that gets defined inside the system is going to have human origin, and it's going to be based on some kind of analysis and calculation exercise, and it gets plugged into the system, and it acts as what we call a trigger. Basically, the system makes a note of the order point quantity, and it pays attention to it during an MRP run. And as a result of it paying attention to it, when that trigger goes off, the system then generates some replenishment suggestions. So as we all know, MRP looks out into the future day by day, and on each day going out into the future, MRP is calculating a potential or predicted availability. So MRP would start today and say, well, I've got so much on hand today, and I've got so many requirements that are going to potentially pull inventory out today. Usually those requirements are based on required dates, like the start date of a work order or a required ship date on a sales order. So those would be predicted withdrawals, and they are date sensitive. And the system also day by day looks out for replenishment. So it would see open purchase orders that might be due today, or open work orders that might be due today. And using that information of on hand plus allocations plus replenishments, it comes up with a predicted availability. And then it does the same thing for tomorrow and the day after and the day after. And it looks all the way out as far as my MRP planning horizon is defined inside the master controls. When it comes to a point in the future where it sees that that predicted availability is going to fall below the defined order point quantity, that event is known as an order point intrusion. That's the nomenclature that Intuitive uses in its training materials and its online help. So when the order point is intruded upon, when the availability falls below the order point, the system is then going to create a planned order for that part number, for that item ID. And we'll talk a little bit later about the nature of those planned orders, but that's basically what an order point does. Another way to think of the order point is that it defines a desired level of inventory that you wish to maintain and that you want to be notified of when you don't have that target quantity being maintained. Some companies call this buffer inventory. Some people call it JIC, which stands for just in case. And we'll talk about why it's used. First of all, order point is very often used in make-to-stock environments, and it does kind of represent a steady state forecast. Where I am making widgets and I'm building them and putting them in stock, and then it's up to my sales team to sell those quantities, and the order point quantity becomes a predicted level of inventory that must be maintained so that most of the time I can ship from stock and not get caught short. There are exceptions to that, and we'll talk a little bit about how to handle those exceptions. But the reason I call it a steady state forecast is because if I say that I want 20 pieces on the shelf at all times, then that is based on some predicted sales rate that tells me that if I keep 20 in stock or tell the system to try to maintain an inventory level of 20 at all times, then based on my sales rate, that should not make me run out before I have to make more. And we'll see that in a little bit. I have a nice diagram that demonstrates that. So if I'm in a make-to-stock environment and I don't have a lot of seasonality to my demand, then order point can actually, at the finished goods level, tell the system, here's how much I need to maintain at all times in order to be able to ship from stock with no shortages or back orders. If I'm running in a theory of constraint or just-in-time environment, the order point can actually be thought of as the buffer quantity for theory of constraints, or the Kanban quantity, if you want to, in a just-in-time environment. In these cases, the order point is typically going to be set at the lower levels of the bill of material so that I can keep my constraint work center busy at all times, or I can generate via a planned order what is essentially a pull ticket to make up a subassembly or to fabricate some machined parts or manufactured parts. So in a theory of constraint and just-in-time environment, typically the order point is going to be set at the lower levels of the bill of material and represent these buffer or container quantities. The third reason why order point is frequently used that I see in my customer base is a lot more materials and components are now coming from overseas, which means that lead times are now very, very lengthy and very often unpredictable, or at least variable. And so order point basically gives me some buffer inventory so that I don't wait until I've run completely out to place a replenishment order. I'm protecting myself against these variations by saying, well, in addition to what I actually need from my independent demand calculations, I'm going to keep a little bit extra on the shelf so that if I do run into a long lead time situation, I've got some buffer inventory to use up while I'm waiting for those parts to come from overseas. And I don't know what your personal experiences have been, but in a number of customers that I've been talking to recently, and this kind of surprised me until I thought about it, lead time increases are being experienced now because of the tariff situation, where companies who are perhaps less solvent or don't have a lot of free money in their cash flow can't afford the parts, and companies with deeper pockets are snatching them up. So the lead times to get those parts is increasing as well. But in any case, the order point tool is a very effective tool for protecting against stockouts in those situations. So if we think about where we're going to apply our order point, the first place that we can say is, well, I want to apply an order point quantity against my finished goods. As we said, this can be used as a sales forecast. It kind of assumes that steady state of demand, and it supports that ship from stock policy. So if I'm using order point as a sales forecast, that is really the characteristics as we mentioned on the previous slide. However, I can also use order point in conjunction with an actual sales forecast. You know that in Intuitive, I can go in and enter a predicted sales quantity for a particular time period. Sales forecasts come in very handy if I experience seasonal demand. So the beauty of the sales forecast is that I can define forecasts in terms of various time frames. In other words, my forecast doesn't have to be all monthly buckets or all weekly buckets. I can say, well, for the next month, I'm doing weekly forecasts, and then after that, I do monthly forecasts for 3 months, and then after that, I do quarterly forecasts. We can have varying forecast periods, but I can also vary the quantity from period to period, so that if I have a customer in Canada that fabricates plastic lawn furniture, and their demand goes up very much in the summertime, so their forecast varies over time. They have a peak season, and then they have a slow season, and that can be reflected. So if I'm generating a sales forecast inside of Intuitive, I can then use the order point, which protects me against actual experience that might fall outside my prediction of the forecast. It protects me against spikes in my demand that are varying from my forecasted quantities. So in that case, the order point is really going to give me additional inventory that can be applied if my actual experience of sales varies from my calculated quantities. Usually those calculations are based on averages, looking back at some kind of sales history, plus the expertise of my sales team as they're looking at the marketplace and saying, well, we anticipate an increase in this time frame. But if you look the word forecast up in the dictionary, it says see error, because we know that our forecast is never going to be 100% accurate. So in this case, the order point can say, well, on top of the forecast, I always want to maintain this buffer inventory so that if I do have a sales period where my sales actually exceed my forecast, I still have some excess inventory to dip into rather than having to build it as I notice the shortfall and perhaps miss a ship date on a sales order. The other question is, where do we apply this order point? Here you see a graphic that shows a bill of material, a multi-level bill of material, where A is made from B and C is made from D and D is a fabricated item made from F, and E is a subassembly made from G and H. And if we turn it sideways and use that to represent lead times, the cumulative material lead time represents the total, the shortest amount of lead time that would be required if I had absolutely nothing in inventory and I took an order for A. This question would be, what would be the best lead time in which I could go out and buy G and H and F and B and build up my sub-assemblies of E, D, and C, and then do the final assembly of A. If my stock room was empty and I took an order for A, what would be the best lead time that I could accomplish that in? And that is known as the cumulative material lead time. It's a calculation, by the way, that is also done when you do a capable to promise run. If capable to promise were to ignore inventory, it would basically tell you what your cumulative material lead time would be for any finished good item. So there is that lead time. But then your customers have a certain expectation of how long they should wait after they place an order with you to get their product. That is what we define as the delivery lead time. So if we compare that delivery lead time to the cumulative material lead time, you will find that in almost all cases, the delivery lead time is less than the cumulative material lead time. And therefore, that dotted line that you see here on this diagram represents the level in the bill of material below which we need to predict requirements prior to accepting a sales order. In other words, if D and E were already in inventory, then I could accept an order for A, get B delivered a subassembly of C built and the final assembly of A built all within that delivery lead time. If D and E or anything below D and E are not in inventory, then I'm going to miss my delivery lead time. Therefore, I need to be maintaining some level of D and E in my inventory in order to fulfill that shipment. And that's where order point comes in. We are going to establish an order point for D and E. And as MRP looks out into the future, it will notice when I start to dip below my order point, it will tell me to build more so that when I book an order for A, they will already be in stock and I can fulfill that delivery lead time. So how do we calculate order point quantities? Well, it's a little bit different when we look at forecasts or when we're looking at order point as buffer inventory. But basically, order points are protections against variations from the forecast quantity. Typically, forecasts are calculated by using some kind of history, looking back a year, maybe 2 years, and then calculating averages based on that history. Now, an average is a statistic. And as Mark Twain once said, there are 3 kinds of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. And so the history that we come up with, or the averages that we come up with by looking at that history, kind of lead us into a false sense of security that we have this magic number that represents future reality. Even if we do history on a month-by-month basis in order to come up with seasonality predictions, we're still ending up with a single number for a single time period as our forecasted prediction. But the actual sales that we experience are lumpy, where the actual quantity by the customer, who knows nothing about our predictive averages, he comes up and says, this is how many I need. And sometimes the quantity that is being ordered is significantly above, or sometimes even significantly below, that average number. And so the question becomes, if my average is X, and sometimes the customer orders X plus something, then I run the risk of overselling my predicted average, and I therefore need to set up an order point to cover those exceptions. And the order point quantity is based on how many of those exceptions I would typically like to cover. And this is typically done by a statistical analysis of my actuals and comparison of them as a distribution against my average or my mean, and then using standard deviations to indicate how much of that distributed population can be covered. So in the little chart that you see down below here, you can see that if I decide to put my safety stock quantity equal to a single standard deviation, then I'm going to cover about 68% of the exceptions to my my sales average, or my predicted forecast average. If I want to go to a 2 standard deviation, where I cover 95% of them, then that makes my order point quantity that much higher. And so this is where companies have to do kind of an analytic trade-off exercise, where they say, well, going to 1 or 2 standard deviations, which results in a higher order point quantity, then that means I'm going to be sitting on extra inventory for a while, which means an increase in my carrying costs. And now I have to compare that against the exposure that I would potentially have from a lost sale because I can't ship on time. So these are the kinds of trade-offs and the return on investment calculations and conversations that have to go on. But this is typically how order point quantities are set when I am using them in conjunction with a sales forecast. In all other cases where I'm using order points as buffer at the lower levels in my BOM to reduce my lead times, or I'm using order points to determine buffer quantities at my constraint work center, or what my Kanban quantity ought to be if I'm doing JIT or lean manufacturing, or I'm protecting against long lead times. In all those other cases, the calculation of order point basically represents usage during the lead time. And so here's an example where I say, okay, I'm going to look back a year and add up how much of this particular part I used. That gives me my total annual usage. I'm then going to divide that by 250, which is typically the number of business days each year for a company. That gives me my average daily usage, and then I multiply that by the number of days in the lead time, and that becomes my order point. So as you can see in my diagram down below, we have an arrow pointing to the right, which represents action over time. We have an arrow going up on the left, which shows a quantity. So over time, this calculation says over time, this part is going to be used until it hits such a point where the order point is hit, and the order point quantity, which is usage during the lead time, says if I trigger a replenishment order when I hit that quantity, then in theory I should have enough time to build more parts just about the time that I run out. Now, there are two lies built into this calculation that we should be aware of. One is that the usage curve is a straight line. We know that just like with sales demand, dependent demand can be lumpy as well. And so there's no guarantee that once I hit my order point, usage on this item doesn't ramp up, and therefore I could run out before my replenishment order is completed. The other lie that's built into this is that the lead time for this item is always the same. So it might be that my usage stays on a straight line curve, but my lead time, because this might be a purchased item, or because if it's manufactured, my shop floor happens to be very busy right now, that the lead time actually extends, and therefore, again, there's a potential for me to run out before that replenishment order is finished and comes in. And so this is to kind of give you a hint of future topics that we're going to cover. This is one of those areas where, in addition to establishing an order point, I also establish a safety stock, which now says the order point is not based on the assumption that by the time the replenishment order is finished, I will be at 0 on hand. It's triggered at such a place that it says by the time I get my replenishment order, I will be at or near my safety stock quantity. And so now safety stock is available for me to utilize. So it's a buffer on the buffer, if you want to think of it in that manner. So where do we set up order points inside Intuitive? Well, there is on the item card, on the planning criteria tab, there is the economic order quantity and order point quantity fields. The order point quantity is where I plug in this calculated number. However I come up with it, this is where I put in my order point quantity. That will, as we've talked about, will trigger the creation of a planned order. When I run MRP and it notices an order point intrusion, the system automatically generates a planned order. But there's a couple of other questions that we have to answer about the planned order. First of all, what's going to be the quantity for that planned order? Just because MRP says, hey, you've had an order point intrusion, it's time to make more or buy more, the next question is, well, how much more? How many do I need to buy or build? And then the other question that has to be answered is, when do I start that planned order, and when do I need to finish it by? What are the dates that I'm going to put on that order for a start date and a required date? Well, in answer to the first question, the quantity that the planned order gets generated for depends on the order policy code. And you can see that just above on the screen where I put in the oval to highlight those two fields. If I am using an order policy code of discrete or min-max mult or period order quantity, then MRP is going to use the logic behind those order policy codes to determine the quantity that is needed on the planned order. Discrete, as we know, basically says if I've had an order point intrusion and I am falling 7 pieces below the order point, then MRP will tell me to build 7 pieces. It will generate a planned order with a quantity of 7 pieces. If I'm using min-max mult, then those rules apply. The system will say, well, if you need 7, but the minimum is 10, then I'll tell you to build 10. If the minimum is 5 and the mult is 5, then I'll tell you to build 10. The minimum of 5, but that's not enough, so multiply by 5, that's 10. So now build 10. And period order quantity, again, will use the same logic that MRP does, which is if I have to plan an order, look at the number of days supply field and look out that much further and see if there are other requirements for the same item and create a planned order to cover it all. If I use the order policy code of fixed, I am now putting this part basically under classic order point control. Remember that order point in one case can be used as a Kanban pull. And when I do a Kanban pull or in a just-in-time environment, typically I say, here's an empty bin, so to speak, and I want you to fill it up. So there's a predefined quantity that needs to be produced or procured. And that's where the economic order quantity field comes in. So if I'm establishing order points and I want control of how many to build, I don't want the MRP engine to determine it, but I want to predefine it, then I fill in that economic order quantity field. I use the order policy code of fixed. And then whenever the system notices an order point intrusion, it will generate a planned order for the quantity in the EOQ field on the item card. So that answers one of the questions, which is how much, for what quantity, should this planned order be generated? The other question is, where do the dates come from? Well, Intuitive introduced a master control flag some time ago that kind of addresses this issue. Prior to this flag being set up, here's what happened. When an item hit its order point, you can see this, excuse me, at the bottom of this slide in that little graphic that I've got. In the prior design of the system, when the system noted that the order point intrusion was taking place, it would create a planned order that was due on the date of the intrusion. And it would then backward schedule that planned order to come up with the start date. So if MRP is looking out into the future and it notices that I have an order point intrusion, say on November 1st, and the lead time for that item was 10 days, it would say, well, I am going to create a planned order that has a required date of November 1st, and then I'm going to backward schedule based on the lead time for that item and set the start date or the release date of that planned order to that date. This was fine as long as the order point intrusion happened enough out in the future so that when it calculated the start date on that planned order, that date also fell in the future. The problem that a lot of customers had, however, was that I have a part that has a 10-day lead time. MRP just noted a reorder point intrusion that's 5 days from now, and it would end up with a planned order with a required date 5 days from now and a start date of 5 days ago. Because as we know, MRP can be kind of dumb about calculating start dates and can actually create a planned order with a start date in the past. And this behavior of the order point logic caused a lot of problems because we were getting replenishment recommendations coming out of MRP saying you should have already started this in order to fill that order point quantity back in. So what Intuitive did was they introduced a brand new flag in the master controls under the planning flag sections that says, should MRP forward schedule order point replenishments? And if that flag is checked, now when the system notices an order point intrusion that requires a planned order, it creates one with a start date equal to the intrusion date, and it then forward schedules from there to come up with a required date. So this works more in conjunction with the original order point logic, which is if I start an order on the day of the order point intrusion, it should be finished by the time I get down to either 0 or the safety stock level, depending on whether or not I'm using safety stock. Speaking of which, what about safety stock? Well, safety stock, as we've mentioned, can be used in conjunction with either order point or sales forecasts to guard against those variances that fall outside an average that has been calculated in order to set either the order point or the forecast quantity. However, when it comes to the actual behavior of safety stock or how it's treated inside Intuitive, there are some significant differences between the two. And this is where in the past a lot of people have been confused. So when MRP runs and it's looking out into the future to calculate that availability quantity, it is allowed to consider order point quantities as being applied to availability. So if I have an order point of 10 and MRP says, well, on this particular day, I need 8, the system will say, well, that is an intrusion into my order point quantity. My available is now 2, but that's because it was considering the order point quantity as being applicable to that availability calculation. It will still trigger a replenishment order, but it will do so while at the same time saying, yeah, but I'm allowed to use the order point quantity. I just will then make more to fill in the gap. However, MRP does not consider safety stock quantities as available supply during those calculations. So if on a particular day I have a safety stock level of 10 and the system says I need 8 of those, the system is going to tell you you're going to be 8 short because I can't use the 10. So if you this is where we said that if you have a safety stock of 2 and an order point of 10, your trigger point is 12, but the system will only use or be allowed to consider 10 of those, which is the order point quantity, as applicable to future availability. So that's one major difference between order point and safety stock. Safety stock quantities are essentially hidden from MRP during its availability calculations. The second major difference between order point and safety stock is that when MRP sees that you're going to potentially hit your safety stock quantity and it generates a planned order, it always backward schedules from the date that you hit your safety stock. So it always is going to behave the way that order point driven planned orders calculated prior to the addition of that new master control flag. So they're always going to be backward scheduled, and they're always going to have a required date of the date that you hit your safety stock quantity. And as we said, if you're using them in conjunction with order point, then the quantity that tells MRP to do something is going to be the sum of the safety stock quantity plus the order point quantity. So to quickly summarize, we're using our order point to basically tell the system that I need to protect myself from some kind of unpredictability. And I've done a pretty good job of analyzing the nature of that unpredictability and coming up with an order point quantity that gives me sufficient protection. So again, it can serve as a forecast if I'm in a make-to-stock environment. It can serve as a buffer to make sure that I never run out of work if I'm in a theory of constraints or a just-in-time environment. It can also be used to protect me against long lead times or fluctuating lead times. So that's the presentation I had prepared. Are there any questions at this point?
I do not see any, but if you guys would like, now is the time. If you want to press the hand raise button, if you would like to be able to personally talk to our consultants and ask them any questions. So, but thank you, Tim. And I'll go ahead and stick our contact info up before we just go into our last little bit of today's event. All right. Let's see if we have any. Nope, that's okay. So if you would like, we can switch it over to you if you'd like to tell everybody, talk to you about our resources and their ERP systems and everything.
Sure, absolutely. So first off, I wanted to thank everybody for coming out here to our user group meeting. We used to have long day ones, and I think that was too long for everybody. So we started trying to get away from the full day and start moving over to just doing a 2-hour one. We figure it probably makes it a little easier for everyone. If there's things that people would like to see, please let us know. Because we're here to help you always. You know, we appreciate our customers, and I know that you appreciate us for being there for you and your teams. If there's things that you need or need from us, please let us know. One of the things is let us know also how we can make these user groups better, more entertaining for you, more with information that you can go back to your teams with, saying things that you might have learned and things that you want out of this. Before I go forward, I do want to go through a couple of different things. One of the things, Jess, if you can give me rights with my screen, I'm just going to show our website.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So give me 1 second, everyone. If everyone can see my screen. Jess, can you see my screen?
Yes.
So for everybody who's on here, I just want to let you know, so this is our website. So it is peoplesenseerp.com. We also have peoplesense.net. That is for HR and payroll. We have peoplesensetime.com. That's for our time and attendance. And we also have PeopleSense Docs, and that is for our M-Files, our document management software, storage software that we have. It also has workflow built into it. But one of the things I wanted to talk to everyone about too is if you have to put a work ticket in, if you need something done right away, one, you can call us. But if you call us, we're normally going to say, hey, can you put a work ticket in real quick just so we can document that? And that's over here at the help desk. If you come over here, give it a second. All of you for the intuitive side, you're going to come down here to intuitive. If you haven't done this so far, you're going to come down here. And on the intuitive side, you just really need to put your name in, your company, email address, phone number, and then you can write a full message. The message will go longer than this. It actually fills in. And then when you submit that, we'll get that right away. Jess is normally on there. Jim Cooey's on there. We have Joseph, a whole bunch of other people who are on there who will get these messages. And Gary certainly will have those, and we will process those right away. Okay? So just letting all of you know that.
So
for the
one thing
product.
I will add to that is if you guys would like to add attachments to your tickets, if you just want to email our help desk for Intuitive at our IMS support at PeopleSense ERP, that way we can see your attachments that way.
Yeah, so if you have error messages, things like that, if you need Jeff and Ness, you need anyone else, Larry, Tim, anyone to help you, Doug, they can see those issues right away, so you can take care of those. Also, we also have products. You'll see all the different products up here. We also have resources, white papers. So if you want to do a download, if you want Jess to send you something or Gary to send you something, we have our white papers out there for that. One of the things I did talk about earlier is we also have our ERPs. We have our Acumatica. So we have a lot of customers who are thinking that since they're not on maintenance anymore, eventually in the next year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, they might want to move to something else. Please let us know. We represent Acumatica, and we've already moved customers over to the Acumatica software. So we're very familiar with our Intuitive, being able to work with Jeff, the team, stuff like that to get data and convert it right over to Acumatica. And if you'd like to see a demo of it, just a 30,000 foot overview of that, you just have to let us know. And Tim Lindsay, who knows the software of Intuitive, inside and out, he also does our Acumatica demos. So I have to thank Tim. Tim, you do an awesome job on that. So thank you. So we will be planning our next one probably in March or April for next year. So I'd like to get that ideas from our customers. So if you have some ideas, please submit those to Gary of things that you might want to see. Things that you want to see with the software or with the third parties, so we can at least get that on them. So I want to thank everyone again. Jess, I will pass it back over to you.
So if you guys have any questions, now would be the time to ask, since we have all of our intuitive consultants on. You can ask any type of question that you would like to know from them. If there's something you would like to learn more about, or if you have questions about anything we've done today.
And it's free, just so you all know, it's free. We don't charge you for any of that, so please let us know.
Yes, so you guys can ask Jeff any questions, Larry, Tim, Gary, you can ask any of them. And again, we are starting, if you guys would like to do it verbally, we can have that done as well.
And just if you do get questions in, this is always being recorded also for everyone. So this will also be out there for you to look at later for any of the people who have who came on to our webinar. So you could go back through and look at any of the things that any of the consultants have been talking about through today. So if you have any questions about anything, you can go back to the video or ask Jess and the team later if you need anything.
Yes. So it looks like we don't have any questions. Is there anything anyone would like to say before we end today's session? Jim or Gary or any of our consultants?
Well, me personally, I want to thank all the consultants, Jeff, Tim, Larry, everyone who was out here to help us today. So thank you so much. Gary, thank you so much for you and the team on that side for all the hard work that you guys do. Jess, also you also for putting everything together. I can't thank you enough. And so if anyone has any questions about the Acumatica, you get a hold of Jessica or Jim McCormick. Jess can always get a hold of Jim. Jim runs that whole side and can get you a demo and everything set up for you if you want any questions on that. Gary, anything from you?
No, thank you, everybody. It's great doing, great chatting with everybody on the phone. Some people I haven't chatted with, but I know most of the companies and a lot of the customers, and I've been around the product just like everybody that presented today, 20 plus years, and it's great to see that a lot of you have come forward with us with Intuitive at PeopleSense. So again, thanks, Jim, for giving us the opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for being part of the PeopleSense family. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Yes.
Thanks, Jess.
Thank you, everyone, for taking time from today. If you would like a copy of this recording, just shoot me an email and I'll be happy to send it over to you. And everyone have a good rest of your day.